Hello everyone. So today I'm going to have a brief video related to my recently published article on LinkedIn, Deploy ML Code Using Docker Container. Here's the article link. I will put it in my video as well. So in this short video, what we are going to do is we are going to use the Docker container example that AWS has provided. We are going to use it on the SageMaker. As SageMaker, there are two modes of operation, training mode and serving mode. So the same Docker container image, we are going to use it for both training and the serving. Okay, so let's get started. This is the folder location where the Docker container example is provided by Amazon. So I have downloaded this folder. So let me just take you to the folder location where I've downloaded. So this is the folder where I've downloaded it. It has a Docker file. It has a build and push file that actually takes the Docker image and pushes into the Amazon Elastic Container Repository. These are other decision trees. As I talked about, there are two modes of operation, training and serving. So this is for the training, this is for the serving the model. Okay, so to begin with, we are going to go to the Amazon SageMaker. We are going to create a notebook instance, and I'm going to call it as a Docker sample v1. You can certainly pick up any name that you want. I'm going to pick the T2 medium as a notebook instance type, and then I've already set up the IAM role. As I talked in my previous videos, you can always create a new role that takes you to the specific S3 location. And here you go. I'm going to leave the remaining options as it is and create a notebook instance. Let's wait for a few minutes when the notebook instance get created. Okay, now that my Docker notebook is created, the instance is created, I'm going to open it up. Here we are, and this Jupyter notebook, I'm going to create two folders, one for the container and then within container I'm going to create one more folder for decision trees. Okay, so once you have this, essentially what we are trying to do is we are going to load the Docker container file and the decision tree files provided by the GitHub and by AWS and load it into the Jupyter notebook. Okay, so now that we have loaded the files on the GitHub into our Jupyter notebook, this is the Docker image file. As I was talking before, AWS SageMaker enables training and serving of the model. So now this Docker image actually supports both. The Docker image provided by AWS, it actually supports both the training and the serving of the model. So this is the Docker image file, and it basically, as you can see at the very top, it supports both training and serving. Now certainly you can have two separate Docker images, one for training, one for serving, but in this case we are doing the same. Okay, so I copied the files. The next thing to do is we are going to take this Docker image and move it into our Amazon ECS Elastic Container Repository. So right now you can see I can move here. So I'm going to take this instance and take this Docker image, push it into my Elastic Container. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to create a and write in some shell commands to basically take this data and take this Docker applications and push it into my Elastic repository. Okay, so this is my shell command that I written down. The main key point over here is that we are going to find that if my Docker, if this specific Docker image is already in the repository. If not, then I'm basically pushing it into creating a repository first, and then at the end I'm building and pushing it into the Docker image into the repository. Other key point is, as you may know, Docker image is per account and region basis. So this is where we are basically collecting that information. I'm actually going to do it on US East 2 because that's where most of the code is. And so this will take once I put all of this code, it takes few minutes actually to push it, publish it, build it, publish it into the Docker container repository. So I'm going to start run, and then wait for it to finish. Okay, so now that my Docker container is pushed, so these are a bunch of different, once you execute the script, you will see a lot of different steps that it goes through, and ultimately at the very end, you will see a line indicating that the final line of latest digest and whatnot. Okay, now if I go back into the Amazon Elastic container, I can see that my repository is created over here, and I can also see some additional image details. Okay, so going back to my shell command, so now that we have published our Docker image, now what we are going to do is we are going to load some of the data for training the model from our Redshift cluster, and also then use the data to serve the model. Okay, so it's time to basically import bunch of different libraries from Python to load the data from Redshift into our Jupyter notebook. So now that my Docker container is published, I have imported a couple of Python libraries, specifically note down Bodec3. This is what we are going to use to get some data, and also SageMaker predictor library and the CSV library to load the data from Redshift and basically create a CSV file from it. Okay, so now I queried the data from my ML data iris flower table, and this is the kind of a data that we are trying to predict from. So these are the flowers, these are the length, width of, and petal width and length, and from the data that we fetched from the Redshift, we actually created a CSV file, and also this is where I'm printing it out some of the data so you can see what type of data we are dealing with over here. Okay, so now that we have the CSV file created, this is my CSV file that we loaded data from Redshift into Jupyter Python notebook. Next thing to do is to train the model. So we are going to apply this data location, load this data, find the Docker image. As we know, Docker image is based by the account and the region, so this is my image. Estimator function requires this image in the rule parameters, so we are passing those parameters. And the very last thing that we need to do now is basically train the model. So train.fit and then data location. Once you do that, is now Docker image is going to be invoked, and now your model training basically step starts. Okay, now that the model training is completed, I'm going to take this model and I'm going to deploy this model. Okay, so in order for me to deploy it, I'm going to use this deploy function. And I'm using this X large instance type. Now once you deploy the model, essentially there are a couple of things that happen. SageMaker creates the endpoint instance, and that is the endpoint that you can call from your RESTful instance that can be called from a lot of different services, web calls, whatnot. Okay. Now that our model has been deployed, the next step is to certainly use this model and predict some data. So in order for us to do the prediction, we are going to load some sample like 50 records from the CSV file. Okay, so as a last step, now you can play around with some data and prediction. So here is my petal and sepal length for 50 records. I pass it and predict using the model, and the model is basically telling me what type of flower it is. Thank you.